Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about how to market yourself and your business on Instagram. And before we dig into the event, I just wanted to do a few intros and tell you a little bit about the Blackstone LaunchPad. So I'm Kate Cassidy. I am the program manager of Temple's Blackstone LaunchPad. Also on the Zoom is my colleague, Julie Stapleton Carroll. Hello, Julie. And at the Launchpad, we are part of the Office of the Vice President for Research, and we're a free resource that's available to Temple students and alumni. If you have an idea for a business or you already have a business, we have access to resources that can help to move your business along. I'll drop a link in the chat where you can find more information or schedule a one-on-one meeting with Julie or myself. So today our event is focusing on marketing through Instagram, and we are joined by Brandyn Campbell. We're very happy to have her back, and she is a consultant with experience in content strategy and brand management, and has worked with companies like the NFL and Pepper Lane. And has a lot of expertise around social media and specifically Instagram. So I'm going to turn the reins over to Brandyn. Thank you.
So I can only be here for the first 30 minutes anyway.
So much. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this evening, well, late afternoon. I am Brandyn, really pleased to meet you. And I know that social media is always a huge question mark for business owners, Instagram in particular. It's for many folks, it's very fun and exciting, but people aren't sure how to approach it in an intentional way. So we will talk about that today. Let me get my presentation up. Why does this always happen? Here we go. Wait 1 second. I did something strange. One moment. It wouldn't be an event without a slight technical glitch, would it?
No worries.
Okay.
And also, I should have mentioned that we will have time for questions at the end, but if you have a question and you want to make sure that we get to it, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll be stopping periodically to answer any of the questions that are there.
Yes, okay, here we go. I'm just going to share it right from here. And as Kate was saying before, would love for this to feel as natural as it can in COVID times. So questions, comments, feel free to pop them in the chat. And like we said, we will stop from time to time to answer. To introduce myself, this is me with my kiddos. Riley's the 3-year-old, Matthew's my 7-year-old. And I have very intentionally put them in the slide because they may become a part of the presentation. I was joking earlier saying that they may bust through the door at any time. So you may meet them in person, but that's them. To let you know a little bit about who I am. As Kate mentioned, I have a communications company where I work with businesses to create content, help guide their content strategy, as well as help them find their unique and authentic voice. I came to this work through about 10 years ago. I started doing freelance writing and a lot of blogging and worked my way through being active on social media and making connections, worked my way to writing a column for the Eagles for a time, some writing for the NFL. And then when I started my business, wanted to more broadly bring that skill set to other small business owners. So love this topic and we can go ahead and dive in. So we'll cover a few areas, why Instagram is so big, why we're having this conversation. We'll touch on some of the biggest misconceptions about just social media overall. We'll talk about how to align your top business objectives with your content. I'll give you my 3 biggest tips for moving forward with your social media presence and for being successful at it. And we will end with questions. So why is we're talking about Instagram. We know it's a huge deal. The last time I presented with a LaunchPad, there were tons of questions, but why is it such a big deal? I'm not sure if you can see this graphic very well. I apologize if you can't. This is something from a company called Sprout Social. I really like, they have a demographic breakdown for all of the major social media platforms. So that is a resource I recommend you all look into when you have a chance to get a sense of what the makeup is of various social media channels. And this just shows how popular Instagram is with 13 to 17-year-olds, as well as 18 to 29-year-olds. It really shows if you are marketing in any way to young adults, you need to be on Instagram. There's also a sizable population of 30 to 49. So this graphic just helps to show what a strong force it is in the social media landscape and why, beyond just being fun, why it's important. And another reason it's important, looking into that graphic a little bit more, there are 116 million users of Instagram in the United States. It is a strong global presence. There are some social media channels that are, more popular here than they are elsewhere. This is not one of them. It's consistently strong internationally. There's some numbers for India as well as Brazil. It is second only to Facebook in the number of daily logins of any social media platform. And as you know, Instagram is owned by Facebook. And the fact that it's popular with younger users means that even if right now your target isn't the 18 to 29 audience, there's more and more of a presence being established by Instagram. So it's important for a lot of companies to be there. So when you're thinking about Instagram, your company's presence, what you want your strategy to be, the real core question and all the questions you ask yourself should be about your audience. Who are they? What is your client avatar? Do you know the demographics of your audience? Those questions can help, you can help get guidance on those by looking at some of the data from Sprout Social or other sources. And most importantly, where does your audience hang out? One thing I hear the mistake of making is people are where they feel most comfortable, not where their clients are or where their target audience is. You need to have a sense of where your audience hangs out so that you can be there, so that you can talk to them, so that you can hear what they're saying. And where do you feel like you can best showcase who you are, what your unique marketing proposition is? Those are all things to consider as you look to build your strategy. And are very resistant to Instagram because they feel like my business is not one that's visual. I'm not a photographer. I'm not a stationery designer. Why do I need to be on Instagram? And really, the answer to so many of these questions is that, if your audience is there, you need to be there as well. And I think some of the fun of Instagram when you are using it to promote a business is it allows you to be creative. I'm a writer, I use words. Initially, Instagram, I liked it, but it was a struggle for me to think of how I wanted to visually represent my business, the businesses of my clients. But we'll talk about some ways to do that. But again, the first consideration is where's your audience? So a common misconception that folks have is that, I'm a business, I need to be on every social media platform there is. And especially with solopreneurs, they stretch themselves too thin. You don't have to be everywhere. Once you have a presence and you're up and running, and if you're able to hire staff, that's wonderful. If you like social media, great. But if you're stretching yourself so thin on every channel that you're not doing a good job on any, that's not a key to success. So again, figure out where your customers are and pick those one or two platforms. For instance, for me, as a lot of my work is supporting other business owners, LinkedIn is a must for me. And then I am also on Instagram because I've had success there and I also really enjoy it. Another common misconception is that social media is only for selling. You'll see some accounts that you only see a post when there's something for sale or they have a promotion or they want you to buy something. You probably unfollow that account pretty quickly, or it's probably not one that you go to very much. And there's a reason for that, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I'm finding this less and less. I have a feeling if you're attending this presentation, you probably don't believe this, but there are a surprising amount of people who just feel like, I have a website, I don't need to be on social media. Even in non-COVID times, that's not true, but especially right now, you need to have a strong digital presence so that you can be anywhere. More people are hanging out online because this is what our lives are right now. So it's really important to have a presence so that it makes it easy for people to connect with you. This is a quote from a gentleman named Doug Kessler. He's a pretty well-known marketer. And I love the way he describes social media. Traditional marketing talks at people. Content marketing talks with them. So this is exactly what I was driving at when I said you shouldn't be only posting when you want people to buy something. You should be having a conversation. You should be having engaging content that is helpful to people, interests them. And yes, you're a business, so you do have things to sell. So it's a balance. You may have heard of the 80-20 rule. Try to have about 80% of your posts be informational and about 20% selling. So if you think of that as the Instagram grid, some folks like it to be at least one, perhaps two things that are explicitly about sales per the nine grid that you can see on your phone. So when you're coming up with your account, your strategy, you really need to think about who you are writing for. Who is it that you want to come visit your Instagram feed, who you want to interact with? And in helping you think through that, you may be very clear on it. It may be something you're still trying to define. So you may find it helpful to think about your company, the brand you want to build, and describe it just really briefly, 3 to 5 words. That helps you really focus in on what you want to convey. And then further think about, how do you want people to feel when they interact with your content? Do you want them to feel relaxed if you are a business in the wellness space? Do you want them to feel informed? Think about that aspect as well when you're thinking about the kind of content you want to create in building your strategy. So the 3 tips for really all content, but specifically Instagram, that will help you stand out and help you be successful on social media and on Instagram is, first, be who you are, be authentic. We know about influencers. There's been kind of a little bit of a backlash because I think people don't want to see perfectly curated lives and feeds, especially in our current climate, but we were seeing some of this even beforehand. People are following you. They want to get to know you. And that, regardless of what your business does, that's always going to be your unique value proposition. There's, for instance, in my case, there are tons of social media marketers. They don't all have my experience, my approach. So you being yourself, really leaning into what makes you different, is going to help you to stand out. Being useful is one of those tips that's really important, and we'll talk about it a little more, but it might make you want to roll your eyes a little bit because I've heard people say, I want to be useful, but I'm not sure how to do that. So we'll dive into that a little bit, but you want to help to show that you know what you're talking about. In some ways, you want to show that you can help solve the problem of the people that you're seeking to attract to your feed. When you think of your own social media habits, I cannot, certainly in my experience, there's never been a post that I have found helpful for resolving some issue or that just told me something I've always wondered about. It's never been the case that I've been like, that was so helpful. I am never going to come and check out this account again. No, I'm impressed. I want to see more of what they have to say. So being helpful in some way, being interesting, helping to solve problems is a huge key of content marketing, because if you can help people solve something, they will immediately want to see what more you have to say. The really challenging part for a lot of businesses is this last key, being consistent. Social media is not something where you can say, okay, I'm going to go hard for a month and that's all I have to do. It's kind of like fitness in that way. You know, in January, people kind of go hard, they're going to lose all this weight, and then by the second week, you don't see anyone anymore. Social media can be similar in that you have to remain consistent, and if you fall off, you have to start over again to build that process. So and to build the momentum. So you don't want to have to keep doing it over and over again. You want to set your sights on being consistent, and kind of planning some of your content in advance is a big way to help you accomplish that. So I talked about these all a little bit when just on that first slide, but I truly believe this: if you're your authentic self, you have no competition. No one's going to have your same style of delivery. If you're doing something on IGTV or Reels, you are uniquely you, and there's a lot of talk about the word authenticity, but it really is true. Just be yourself, and people can kind of sniff out when people are presenting something that they're not. So back to the point of creating useful content, here are some questions to ask yourself about what would be valuable. You want to know what areas your customer struggles in, and knowing that, you can help to formulate responses. I have later in the presentation a tip that I'll just share here. If you really aren't sure where to start, a great suggestion is to think about the questions you're asked the most about your business. It may be, oh, where did you get that name from? How did you get started? Think about the first 5 to 10 tips, because questions that you receive, because that's interest. People have already shown you that they want to learn more about that particular thing. So that's a great starting point. Jot down those questions, and that can be your start. Those can be your first posts. You may have so much to say about one of the topics that it can be a series, but that's a great way to get started. It's very practical, and it's a great way to approach your strategy overall, by paying attention to the questions you receive, to the comments you get on posts, perhaps to get a read on what people are responding to. So the consistency piece, as I was mentioning, is so important, but it is so hard. Even knowing how important it is, I'm great at it for my clients. I fall off all the time for myself. So here are the tips you should follow, and I should follow, so that does not happen. A key is, if you get in the habit of getting to your phone and saying, oh, I need to post something, and you have no idea what to post, you can easily spend an hour trying to figure something out to say, then trying to find an image. It takes a lot of time. So try to batch your content once a week, meaning try to sit down, think about what you'd like to say, get your pictures ready, get your images ready. A way to help facilitate that is just to have an editorial calendar that can be in a number of forms. It can be a planner, it can be a spreadsheet. Put, holidays, any particular days, sales coming up to help guide what you're going to say, and just be organized. That's really the key, and it's very hard. I completely realize, but once you get in the mode of having the ideas, I do also recommend that you have a document. Maybe it's a note on your phone, maybe it's a Google Doc. Have a running list of ideas for posts, so you can start with the top 5 or top 10 of frequently asked questions. You may see a competitor post something that you think is interesting, or you have a counterpoint. You may have ideas throughout the week. Just have something that's close by where you can jot down ideas. So when you come to this point of creating your content, you're not starting from scratch. You already have some ideas to build upon. Having a scheduler like Buffer or Later, there are tons, but that will help you to then schedule the content that you've planned out, so that you don't have to sit by your phone and think about, oh gosh, I need to get this post up. It'll be all done. It'll post for you. The thing to remember, though, is that you do want to engage, because it is a two-way street. As much as possible, you want to have conversations. On the engagement piece, a lot of people are resistant to, that's part of why they don't post frequently, because they think it's going to be a huge time suck. It doesn't have to be. If you put 15 minutes in your schedule, 15 or 20 minutes to kind of monitor your posts, see what people are saying, check out who's liked the post, look at hashtags. We'll talk about hashtags in a little bit, see other kinds of posts happening, maybe try to engage with some other posts. If you do that intentionally for 15 minutes, you can get a lot done, and then you can go do something else. So it doesn't have to be a time suck. It certainly can become one if you don't put some limits around it. And the other thing mentioned on this slide that I'm a big believer in is repurposing content. A lot of people think if you've created a blog post, that's created, that's all that is. Nope. If you've done the work, especially in long form pieces of content, you can put that to work for you over and over again. Literally, when I write a blog post, I look at it, I kind of highlight key phrases. If you're doing a top 5 reasons why Instagram is the best platform for your business, you can do a caption. There are a lot of different ways you can present that. Perhaps one post is, number 3 from that post. And then you talk about the first item from that post. And you can use it, slice it and dice it in a number of ways. And if you kind of space it out a little bit, it doesn't have to be as much as you think. I think a lot of people think that because they're so familiar with the content that they think everyone around them will be like, oh no, you already posted that. People won't realize that, especially on Instagram. So if you already have something created, think about how you might be able to make that into a short video that you put in your stories. Maybe you do something about it on Reels. If you have done something already in a video, then you can put that into a text. There are just so many different ways you can multi-purpose. And since we're all really short on time, I encourage you, as part of your strategy, to think about the different ways you can make what you've created work for you. So this is the tip I was referencing that I couldn't wait to share, so I already shared about the frequently asked questions. And you always want to pay attention to what is resonating with your audience. So it's a conversation, but it's not always just the words that are being said. Pay attention to the posts that are getting the most engagement, that people are really responding to, and try to get a sense of what it is about that particular post to get a read on what people are interested in. That will help further guide you as you continue to create posts and build your presence on Instagram as well as other social media feeds. So obviously, a huge part of Instagram, selecting the images. It is a picture-driven platform. This is part of what makes people either love Instagram or hate it. you have to have, and this is an area where I've had to do some work with clients. Some really get the importance of photos, and we work together, and they already have a great bank of professional quality images. And it's a joy to kind of pair words with those images. Some folks don't get the fact that how key photographs are. And, and that doesn't mean you have to use professional photography, but you do have to have crisp, clear images, which with all of our phones now these days, that is very easy to do. But you do just need to be mindful that it can't just be anything, since that is ultimately the representation that people see. And then if they want to learn more, then they click to find out more. So this really varies by your type of business. If you are in one of the sorts of fields I mentioned before, a photographer, a designer of some sort, it's very, very easy to know how to use Instagram. You can use images of your work. If you're doing something like, if you're a writer or an accountant or something like that, it can be a lot more challenging. So there are a lot of options. I'm sure you've all noticed how popular inspirational quotes are. And one reason is because everyone likes a bit of inspiration in the day, but you can make them look graphically very pretty, very easily, using just templates. It's great to show, even if you have a kind of more structured, well-curated professional feed, people like seeing other people. They like having a feel of that there's a person behind the business. So staff members, if you're a solopreneur, pictures of yourself, clients, pictures of people always perform well on Instagram. And if you run into, I have a photo full of, a phone full of pictures, and I feel like I never have enough pictures for Instagram. You can go to stock photography to supplement some of your content. There are some great ones that don't feel, they're not as stuffy as traditional stock photography. I have some of those mentioned. I have a slide on resources, but Unsplash is one that's free, that is professional photographers contributing their work. Pexels is another. You can find images that reflect what you want them to reflect. Another point I wanted to mention, you, I'm sure, have seen some very highly curated, beautiful feeds on Instagram. And that is an approach that you can take. It is visually appealing, but you also have to be sure that each quote that makes up that, each post that makes up that kind of visual grid, that each post on its own can stand alone. But it can be helpful. I was talking to someone today who said she just found it helpful to know she wanted just a little bit of structure. She wanted to use an inspirational quote with her brand colors, every other picture, and then a picture of, a person, to help with her feed. So something like that can help form some unity and cohesion with your feed, and also help it feel a little bit less overwhelming when you're trying to figure out what image should I post. So the fun of Instagram is that there are so many features, and I haven't even mentioned them all here, but these are the main ones: stories, your highlights, and their various forms of videos. You go live, IGTV, reels. Many of these you can identify as Instagram's attempt to compete with another similar platform. IGTV is them trying to be comparable to YouTube. Reels is the response to the popularity of TikTok. But we'll dive in and talk about each of them a little bit, and how they can help to, how you might be able to use them as assets to the work that you're already doing in building your feed. So stories are a lot of fun. I will admit, when they first were introduced, I was thinking, oh my gosh, so this doubles my workload for every client. I don't know if I'm behind that. I've gotten over that. And I think I think stories are fun, and it can be a very different approach. A lot of work is going to go into, most likely, your feed, the content that's there. Stories, the way I approach it, that's your way to have a little bit more fun with Instagram. It can be spur of the moment. It can be your kind of slice of life. Maybe you have a post that day is talking about how your business started. And so in your stories, you can show, okay, this is every day of the business. Here's my cat sitting on my screen. It can be people getting to know you and your business in a more casual way. I heard someone describe it, and I love this description as, think of stories as the reality show of your life. Just give people a little bit of insight. I realize right now it may not be the most exciting reality show. It seems like we're all kind of living the same reality show, but it's still fun to see what people are up to, or their workspace, or their inspiration that day. So stories, I think you should give yourself permission to have a little bit of fun. You do still want to be intentional, but there's also the fact that stories disappear after 24 hours. So it's a great place to experiment, because it's not going to be in your feed, in your grid permanently. So highlights, this is not the clearest picture. I was talking about crisp photos and didn't use one, but you probably know where they are, but I wanted to give a little visual of the highlights that I'm referring to. They're the little buttons that are at the top of your feed, just above the pictures. That is a great way for you to help deepen someone's experience when they come to your feed. Maybe they'll click on a couple of posts, and then you can help guide their experience. Like, hey, here's some of my portfolio. This is a little bit of my life. In this example, here's some of my travel writing. The highlights come from previous stories, so you can only pin things you have already put up in a story, but it's a great way to let people kind of know at a glance what you're about, and to keep some of your favorite things there, and to another opportunity to highlight your style, in terms of the covers you pick, and to just show more of what you're about, to add a little bit of depth to what you're presenting. And then the video features I wanted to talk about, but I kind of treat them as one, though they are different. But the one point I wanted to really raise is that video is huge on Instagram. It is and it's a reason why there are so many ways to feature yourself on video on Instagram. Instagram loves it. You'll hear a lot about the algorithm. The algorithm is a little bit challenging these days. I think, like so many things, COVID has changed people's typical habits. So there's a lot of experimentation happening with Instagram, but the one thing that's a constant is that video is insanely popular. So in this example, it's a makeup artist doing a video to show what she's talking about. It's a great way, when you think about useful content, it's a great way to present a tutorial, or to present a different way of sharing the information. Not everyone is as, some people like video much more than just reading. So it's a way of sharing content in ways that will be, in different ways, to benefit audience members who receive information best different ways. It's a great way to, again, deepen the connection with your audience. It's all about, with social media, as with all marketing, moving from know, like, and trust. If someone sees your pictures associated with your business, that's good. They know that there's a person behind the business, or people. But when you step in front of the camera, they really feel like they get to know you, and they do get to know a sense of your personality, what your voice sounds like, your mannerisms. So it's a great way to accelerate that move from know, like, and trust. And again, it is just, the algorithm loves it. It loves video. You will see, even if you don't put, and I don't necessarily recommend this, but let's say you throw up one post without a lot of thought, then you throw up a video. The video is going to get a lot of views, where the post may not necessarily. Video is a great tool and a great asset to use to drive engagement. Going live is a great, Instagram also loves that and rewards accounts that go live a lot. That's why you see it happen so often. You can plan to do, there's so many things you can do with it. You can do a live Q&A and have a, a standing Q&A that you do once a week. Maybe it's spur of the moment, but that's a way for folks, if they're on, it's kind of fun seeing when you're scrolling, oh, so-and-so's live, let me see what's checking them, what they're doing. And then you can then pin, if you go live, you can pin that to stories, you can save that to your feed. So there's a lot of flexibility in the video features. And Reels, so IGTV is for longer videos. They can only be up to 10 minutes. Accounts that are, and I forget the specific number, but you can have longer videos if you are, a huge account, something like 10,000, but I think it's even more than that. But that is a way that was the response, as I mentioned, to YouTube, because prior to that, you could only post short video clips. And then Reels is a newer feature. It's a kind of video editing feature, and it makes it fun to just create and edit fun videos, very much inspired by TikTok. And, if you've been on Instagram anytime in the past, I don't know, 3 months, you've seen, well, a couple of months, you've seen Reels. You haven't been able to avoid them. And they are a lot of fun to watch, and there's some fun features. So I think with the video features, some people get really nervous. The Instagram has created some ways to make it a lot of fun, both for the creator as well as those that you are creating for your audience. So hashtags. If you're talking about Instagram, you have to talk about hashtags. Some platforms, they're not essential. Facebook, it's changing a little bit, but Facebook for a while, hashtags were, people did them, you would see them because many accounts will schedule to Facebook and Instagram at the same time, but it didn't serve the same purpose. Twitter is where the hashtag really originated, and depends what your purposes are. We started using hashtags ironically sometimes. You don't want to necessarily do that so much in your post. You can to have fun, but if you really want to access a strategy and benefit behind hashtags, you want to do a little bit of research. So you want to have a sense, and I recommend you build a list. This is not the most fun for most people. I find it oddly enjoyable, but you want to have a sense of hashtags relevant to your industry. You can just use a search feature. You can go on someone else's feed who is a competitor and get a sense. You want to know ones for your industry, and you also want to think about what are the people you're trying to speak to, what are they looking for? So let's say you're a photographer and you specialize in family portraits. So you want to be heavy on, family photographer, New Jersey, if that's where you're based, photographer for newborn portraits, things like that, because that's what people would be searching for. And one thing to be aware of, hashtags, if you've looked recently since the election, it's a little bit different than it has been and will be whenever things return to normal. Currently, if you go to Instagram, there's kind of a statement that you're not going to necessarily see the most recent post for a hashtag, because this was how Instagram wanted to try to combat misinformation. So that is still happening, but on a normal day, and you're still able to see this now. If you go to something like fitness, you'll see that there are, this is an example, I did not look this up before the presentation, but maybe 100 million posts are tagged fitness. So if you are in the fitness industry or have something related to fitness, if you do hashtag fitness, it's not going to do much for you. You want to, when you're building your strategy and doing research, you want to look for hashtags that have, have a lot of use. I'd say between 100,000 to about 1 million. You don't want to, you'll see some that are just 100. That also isn't going to help someone find you. And that's ultimately what it's about. You want to make it easier for people to find you. So have a look. So fitness, it might be Fitness Philly or yoga fitness, something like that. And there are variations where you can break it down and they're still popular, but not to the point that no one would ever be able to find your post because they're just so insanely overused. And we talked about this before when we spoke about consistency, but just some reminders on how to make the most of your time so that you are consistent on social media. Really try to have that running list. I think you'll find that to be really effective, and thinking about blocking out a chunk of time so that it gets done. You probably know, I don't have to tell you, with really everything in life, if you don't put it on your calendar, at least in my world, it doesn't get done. So just make that date with yourself, time to create your content, and then that way you can ensure that you are have a level of consistency. Engagement is huge on any social media platform. Again, it's a conversation, and and you wouldn't want to walk up to someone and say hi or ask a question and have them not respond. It's the same on social media, especially for your business account. If someone comments, you want to comment back. I will add, it is very clear when there are bots and it's a comment that makes no sense. That doesn't count as a person. That doesn't have to be a response. But if someone's bothered to stop by to say something back. Many people try to trick the system, but I find that really there's no substitute for growing organically. So just having genuine conversations, just trying to find relevant accounts and start conversations. If it's someone who you see that they liked one of your comments, didn't necessarily write a comment, maybe check out their posts, see what might be interesting. Try to think of some sort of reasonably thoughtful comment and try to start a conversation. That's a way to get people to notice you and to follow back. You'll see many accounts will follow tons of people and then unfollow them because they want the numbers. They want to have a lot of followers and not follow a lot of people back as a status symbol. Don't do that. To me, it goes back to the authenticity. That doesn't mean you have to follow someone forever if you're not interested in what they have to say, but that's not really a strategy that's going to benefit you if you are looking to connect with your audience members. If you are lucky and follow all the people you want in your audience and then unfollow them, well, that's not terribly helpful. So that, there really there isn't much substitute in life via networking. And if you can, try to have fun with it. Overwhelming. If you do that 15-minute timer thing, it may be a little bit more fun if you know you're not doing this forever and it's not a total time suck. You may already love social media and love being on Instagram, and just if you have fun with it, people know that. And also, one thing I wanted to mention, Instagram just releases new features all of the time. Don't feel like you have to be an expert in all of them. There's nothing wrong with seeing how other people use them, trying them out, being a little bit timid. It's all anything you can do to not be overwhelmed. You don't have to be the first at everything. It is okay to kind of see how it goes and figure out if it's a fit for your brand. So here's the slide I was referencing about some of my favorite free resources. For stock photos, Unsplash I mentioned, as well as Pexels. Nappy.co is a site that features more diverse imagery. One thing with stock photos, it's getting better, but they are not terribly diverse. So for images, beautiful images of Black and brown folks, that's a great site to go to. Canva, you probably already know about it, but Canva is terrific for so many things. It's great for picking beautifully designed templates. You can tweak them, you can put your brand colors. If you do want to have kind of quote graphics and alternate and have a nice curated feed, Canva really makes that, for the non-designers among us, can make that really easy. There are tons of apps to do everything on Instagram. The one that I use to repost, if you simply want to share something that's on Instagram, is Regran. It just, you can kind of copy the post and it'll indicate that who it's from and copy the caption. It's very easy. Later, for scheduling, I tend to use Buffer, but this is free resources. Buffer, I don't believe, I think all Buffer accounts are paid. Later is a tool that is free. I have used it. It does work well for Instagram. And if you are doing videos, if they're kind of oddly shaped, InShot is a really good tool to help you crop, resize photos for Instagram and other platforms. So you're ready to jump into action. I'd love to hear what questions you have.
Hi, Brandyn. First of all, thank you very much for coming. I was here for your first presentation, I think a year ago, so it's great to see you again.
Great to see you.
So my company posts once a week on Wednesdays at noon. And I've seen a lot of different graphs, a lot of different graphics about, what day is the best, when's the most engagement. But frankly, it seems, even if you post something that it's a video format, you spend a lot of time upgrading the production quality on something. For whatever reason, some Wednesdays are hits and some Wednesdays kind of drop a blank. Do you have any recommendations for when to time these posts or how to be more comfortable with that uncertainty?
That is a fabulous question. And thank you again for coming to this presentation. Timing is huge. There is research you can look at that says this is the best time to post. I think you can look at that, but you'll also, you need to watch the performance of your audience. You'll get a sense of when they are most active. Instagram on its insights will show you, I don't find it terribly helpful, their little graph of when your audience is online. But sometimes it'll be a hit and sometimes it'll be a miss. And I have found, especially since March, since COVID, it has been wildly variable. Yeah, I see you nodding. And it's been extraordinarily frustrating for me as a social media manager to try and, no one's been like, well, Brandyn, why isn't this happening? But, I know that usually if I post at this time, this sort of content, I'm going to get this many likes, or, I have this reasonable expectation, and it has just been all over the board since COVID, honestly. And there have been some algorithm changes up in there. So I'd say know that it's not just you. So if it's kind of helpful sharing this with your company, and just keep experimenting. A lot of social media, while there is a lot of research done, so much of it is just trial and error. I did a post today that I was just sure it was going to be a home run. I scheduled it for lunchtime. Nope. A post yesterday that there's actually an error in the way I posted it. So I thought it had gone up. Buffer, I got a notification. It didn't go up, went up way later than I had planned. Did way better than normal. So that's one variable that it is tough to accept, but just know it is literally everyone's experience right now. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I saw a question in the chat that I thought was interesting, and about talking about the bios and maybe some best practices for your Instagram bio.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'd say because Instagram is starting to, I'd say try to be clear about what you do in your bio. You can be clever about it, but I'm sure we've all seen the bios where you've looked and you have no idea what the person does. That's not helpful to you. It's not helpful to them. So my tip would be to try to think of, and that's where that exercise of thinking of 3 to 5 words that you'd like to describe your brands or that you want to come to mind. That's where that can be helpful. Maybe building something around some of those words, but try to, and this is something you can experiment with, try to come up with something that makes it clear who you are in addition to the other tidbits that you want to share. I see one question here asking about the number of hashtags. Great question. So the question is, do you use all 30? So you know that you can use up to 30. There's a lot of different feelings on this. Some folks, especially since this year has been all over the place, people are really trying to figure out answers, and I don't think many people have solid answers. Some folks say, if you use all 30, you're diluting the power of them all, and Instagram will punish you, and you shouldn't use all 30. You should instead try 10 really targeted hashtags. And some say, no, that's real estate. You can use it. I think for me, I have found that I've had better performance if I use 6 to 10 hashtags, but experiment, because I can't guarantee that, what works for me, what works for my clients, that may not work well for you. There's some people I observe, and I'll look to see if they have a post that's done really well. Have they used hashtags? Sometimes I have, sometimes I haven't at all. So I'd say, so I think 6 to 10 is a good middle ground. And it helps you be really focused in your research and thinking about who do I want to read this. That said, and I know this isn't helpful, that's one of the things with social media. There just aren't a lot of hard and fast rules because so much is various experience. But if you use all 30, just see how it goes. If you have good experience, then by all means continue to do that. Okay, let's see.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you gave us a great list of the types of posts that you would recommend. Are there any in your experience as a social media manager that you should avoid, that maybe do more harm than good for your clients?
In terms of a type of post?
Yeah, in terms of types of posts, like you mentioned, avoid low quality posts. But yeah, in terms of types of posts, is there a bad type of post?
Sure. Yes, I think it depends on certainly the business to determine what's bad. But I will say the times I had one client who was insistent that there be photos of her in the feed, which makes sense. She ran the business alone, but her quality of photos were never good quality. So I would do everything I could. I'd crop them. I'd put them in a template where the photo wasn't as prominent, but those just were not as good. And she's honestly why I started going to some of the stock photo sites to try to find things that, it's a pair of hands on a keyboard. That could be her. No one knows it's not. Because that is the one, I'd say that is the one broad category that just will always fail on Instagram if you don't have a good, clear picture. I'd also say pictures of people do well. But that said, I'm sure we all can think of feeds that we know of where there are hardly any pictures. I have a friend who's a food photographer. So her feed is all just beautiful images of restaurant meals. So that's one area that's not hard and fast. Just make sure it's a crisp, clean, kind of interesting looking image, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. No, yeah, it's I guess so. It really sort of varies based on who you are and what you want to get out of it
Yeah,
in
it's
terms of
that's
whether
very
it's a
true.
post. Yeah.
That's where knowing your audience really works well. So for instance, I've started doing a lot with inclusive marketing. So talking about how can you be sure you're speaking to different audiences. And I talk a lot about social justice issues, racial equity on my feed. That's who my clients are. Those are the sorts of things that are important to them. That wouldn't go over as well for many accounts. So that's where kind of having a good sense of your audience will really be helpful. And I mean, and the trial and error. I'm sure I've had posts that I thought, oh, this will be great, and bombed. And you just kind of you learn and you move on. As long as the only really hard thing to come back from is if you deeply offend someone. And even if that happens, if you kind of own up to it and respond quickly, even that won't sink you. So yeah, having a sense of if your audience, my one client is a gym owner, her audience is urban, they're young, and so I can say bad words in that feed and no one will be upset. That wouldn't work well with my accounting clients. So that's where it really varies.
And I think we probably have time for one or two more questions. I see one in the chat asking about um, outsourcing social media. Oh, and I see another one about sources that you follow to keep up on industry trends.
Okay, two great questions. So outsourcing is sorry, I'm going to adjust my computer. You'll have wildly different experiences. When people use me, they are outsourcing. I don't know anything specifically. I know of Socially In and Social Advantage. I don't have personal experience. I know that I've had some clients who have, things have gone well, but they've gone with kind of bigger agencies where you'll see ads where, it's, I don't know, 3 platforms for $300. That's a lot less than you would pay for generally a social media manager to do your social media. And in all instances, a client has come back and said, okay, can we work together again? Because while those types of businesses can be and are super helpful in terms of consistency and just getting posts up, if you get what you pay for, and they are not necessarily spending the time to learn the nuance of your business, of the kind of language that you would use. I really pride myself on trying to get under the hood, I call it, of my clients, and really trying to understand their voice. And you're not always going to get that if you go with a large company. That said, many of these companies are larger because they are very successful and good at what they do. So I'd say kind of do some research, look at the price point, and just ask them questions about how they get to know your business. And I think that'll give you a good indication of if it might work. And so good sources, social media today, easy to remember, and they have a lot of good information. And I also like I subscribe to like Sprout Social and Buffer. Their weekly newsletters have a lot of good information, since they are in the social media space, since so much of anything that happens in social media impacts them. I think they have some really good articles, tips, as well as research, a good balance. Oh my goodness, it is 5. I'm gonna put in the chat. Well, since we're talking about Instagram, I'm gonna put my handle here, Brandyn Campbell Comms. Feel free to follow, feel free to ask questions. Happy to help.
Perfect. And thank you so much. I don't know if we can throw some clap emojis up in the window or in the chat, but we really appreciate you being here. And I will be sending out a recording of this, and I'll also be sure to share your handle so everyone can follow and ask any additional questions. And if anyone would like to continue this conversation with Julie or I, we are available to do one-on-one coaching appointments. I dropped a link to schedule a one-on-one with us in the chat, and I'll also be emailing that out tomorrow. And I think with that, we are done. Thank you so much for attending. Those who are in classes, good luck with finals, and we hope that we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Same to you.